welcome to the Art of Franchise Marketing. Each episode takes a deep dive into the franchise space and explores how the biggest and best brands handle national branding, franchise development, employee recruitment, and localized marketing on a daily basis. This podcast is brought to you by NetSertive, a localized digital marketing partner for franchise networks. NetSertive talks shop with franchise executives to discuss what's working, what's not, and answers the question, what else can you be doing to excel at the art of franchise marketing?
Hello, and welcome to the Art of Franchise Marketing podcast. I'm your host, Erin Martin, and this episode is brought to you by NetSertive. Today, our guest is Ashley Gundlach, the president of British Swim School, an 190-location franchise brand providing swim lessons for all ages and locations. Ashley, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
To kick us off, would you be able to share just a little bit more about your own background and your role at British Swim School?
Sure. So my background is primarily in marketing. So that's how I landed with British Swim School. So spent time out of college in various roles, quite a bit of time in marketing analytics, which is the very kind of unsexy side of marketing. And that was before all of the automations were around that really make me appreciate how easy things can be today. And then I spent over a decade at a marketing agency that worked with all different kinds of clients, primarily nonprofits and associations. And so then they say that everybody falls into franchising and then they never fall out, which is what happened to me. I came on board to British Swim School pretty soon after it had joined Buzz Franchise Brands in 2019. I came on as director of marketing, which was a really exciting time to join the brand. They hadn't had anybody doing marketing full-time before. They worked with some contractors and they had some few folks on the team who were doing it alongside other efforts. So was able to help really build out the marketing strategy and the way that we were going to execute marketing for British Swim School, taking all of the great things that the brand had been doing for the prior 40 years and rolling it into just a structure that was a little bit more elevated using the kind of model that Buzz Franchise Brands had put together pretty successfully with their other brands. And then in the end of 2021, I moved into my current role leading the brand. Was fortunate to be able to bring in some really great folks to run the marketing program and take it to the next level. And here we are, 4 years later, and have had a really great growth.
Love it. And it's funny that you say that data was not sexy because now it completely is. It's back in fad and a differentiator. So I know we're going to get into that a bunch as well. But also when it comes to British Swim School, what does your initiatives for the year look like? What are you guys working on this year?
Yeah, we've got a lot on our plates. And really our biggest initiatives this year are tied into marketing, which is appropriate for this conversation. We are in the process of going through a pretty extensive website redesign. So we did a conversion rate optimization audit last year, which was, again, something that doesn't sound exciting, but really was. It was just all the different ways that you take out the kind of complexities of signing up for swim lessons, which it's not as easy as signing up for a home service where it's, I want to get my garage floor refinished. This is like, how old is your kid and what level are they appropriate for and what location? So finding the easiest way we can get a customer from A to Z. We're also integrating some automation software for lead nurturing, really taking a lot of the legwork out of our franchisees who want to just tap into what we're doing there. And then we're working with an agency on some branding kind of elevation efforts to make sure that what we're talking about with our customers that still resonates given where child development has changed and with new competitors coming into the marketplace. Just want to make sure we've got the right message going out to them.
Awesome. And I love that you guys actually did a CRO audit, conversion rate optimization audit, because I don't hear of that many people doing that highly focused. Okay, how do we reduce the complexities of the steps to getting the information or booking an appointment online? There's so many things that can be sticking points for websites that I feel like that actual audit doesn't get done that much on marketing teams. So can you tell me a little bit more about your guys' thought process? What'd you do? What did that all entail for you guys?
Yeah, for sure. We've got some really quite marketing savvy franchisees that we had been talking about, and we were working with them on their feedback. We knew that it was time for a website redesign because every website, you've got to do it every few years or you're behind the times. And we were realizing that even amongst the really smart people that we had on our team and our really fantastic franchisees and some of the people that they were talking to, there was a lot of competing personalities and just opinions. And so we're like, okay, we need to have a fact-driven approach to this because otherwise, right, who's to say that my opinion means more than somebody else's? And we really wanted to neutralize all of the noise. And we engaged with a firm, and their recommendations, I think, were just incredibly solid. They confirmed some of the things that we thought had some opinions that were different, but were able, to your point, to back it up with data. And then thought of a lot of recommendations that were like, oh, wow, we had not thought about that at all, but that's really solid. We can see where that's coming from. And so I think it was just a really nice way to then lead right into, okay, we're going to redo our website, and we've got these data points that are driving what we're doing.
Nice. And what did you look at from a metric perspective for improved performance? There's obviously conversion rates. Were there other inputs you were looking at that you were hoping to increase or decrease?
For sure. We paid a lot of attention at where people were first engaging with our websites because, again, giving a little bit more insight onto our model, our franchisees are able to operate in as many pools as they want to, as it makes sense for their business. And there's a level of navigation for anybody who wants to find swim lessons for finding the location closest to them. And so we were looking at, okay, where is somebody first arriving on our website? And then where are the places that we're losing them, or we feel that they're spending too much time on a site that we thought was easy, but they're clearly having some challenges. We looked at, we've got some steps to the registration where people can start to fill out information, and it increasingly builds them into the process. So we looked at where we were losing folks there as well. Yeah, I would say that's the kind of the primary pieces we were going into.
And were you losing people when it came to just adding more form fills for information type thing? And so you guys, did you reduce that's always a debate. What's the right level of information to require people to fill out?
I think we had accomplished that piece a couple of years ago because, again, registering for swim lessons, you have a lot of waivers and it gets pretty complicated. And so we had created a way that people could give us just the basic amount of contact information so that if they went through to the longer form, we were still capturing their information if they happened to fall off, and we had some automated lead nurturing for folks who did. But really looking at the placement of that form, how it was positioned in terms of what we were asking for and why we were asking at that point. But a lot of it was just about how do you get the most valuable information into one place for our consumers, and also just being really mindful of how many people are looking at this on their phones and looking at it really quickly, especially because everybody has kids who's looking at our program.
Right, you don't have tons of extra time.
So just being mindful that if we're making it that much more complicated than some of our competitors who might just be operating in one standalone location, we're going to lose that battle for a parent who's multitasking a lot of things at the same time.
Yeah, and I've seen that trend change too from like really snackable, scannable content to convert more people, as opposed to the like keyword stuffing, old school SEO tactics of like really long pages and a ton of content. Like it's not just the volume of content that's being rewarded anymore. It has to be quality, which ends up being short and snackable because of the way that behaviors want information these days.
I agree. And I think you also see that people know if they want to find more information, they know how to navigate websites because most websites are using the same kind of recipe. And so making sure where we want to have longer information, we've got it, but also using visuals of customer reviews to say some of our differentiators, and kind of just thinking about how people's mind is going to draw. And like, I can read one sentence, but I'm not going to read 10. So
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. What we know to be true of reading one versus 10, it's just do what you know is right or test it with data for better performance. And then on the lead nurturing side, you mentioned some initiatives around that too. What does that look like for you guys?
Yes, so we've had pieces in play through email lead nurturing and texting lead nurturing, but recognizing that the more we can make really plug and play for our franchisees, the more they're going to adopt what we're putting out there. And we recognized that we needed to put everything into one place so that our franchisees can log in, they can see what's happening. They're not going to one platform for texting and one platform for email. And so we're pulling in an outside provider that will connect all of the dots. And at the same time, our team is building out a lot of really, really great workflows for our franchisees to automate. If somebody came in and fell off after starting the registration process, here's a workflow for them. And then ultimately building out quite a bit for lapsed customers as well, because with a brand that's been in franchising for 14 years, we've built up some pretty good customer files. And I think there's just tremendous opportunity in those. And this platform that we're using will allow us to plug in, if we have a British Swim School app, it'll allow us to plug in some of that communication. So really just going for that ideal of having everybody's touch points in one place.
Yeah, which it's funny, if you talk about streamlining the consumer workflow or flow on their end, it's like we need to do the same thing for internal systems, make it super simple with automations and all the technology at our disposal for lead follow-up. Like, it's easier to do it when it's easy, rewarded, simple, straightforward. You got to take a page out of the consumer side as well.
Absolutely.
And then on your brand marketing efforts, you mentioned that as a third initiative, and I'd love to hear more about that, especially when it comes to your guys' differentiator. There's a lot of different swim programs out there, and what I love is that, at least for me, when I look at your guys' site, it's clear of what your differentiator is and the driver that you use to set yourselves apart. So hoping you can share a little bit more about that. And I'm curious if it's always been a differentiator for you guys, or if you've leaned into it after learning from some market intel, like how you approach that.
Sure. When our brand was first created in 1981 by this really, I think, incredible woman who was ahead of her time in terms of child development and the best way to teach swimming, it was built on a foundation of survival-based swimming. And the concept that a lot of programs are teaching a kid how to do the freestyle or something like that, but they're not teaching them what is really just core water competency of what do you do when you fall into the water unexpectedly, or how do you buy a parent those critical few seconds with their child that falls into a pool because they have the muscle memory to float on their back. And that's really been the driver of our program. It's been the undercurrent of us adding a young adult program because that's another age segment that has really tragic drowning rates, and it's preventable, right? So we've always had that as a core differentiator. I think layered below that is the fact that we're operating in convenient neighborhood locations. We bring the swim school to our parents. But what we've seen in the last couple of years is that there's a lot of noise in the industry, and they say that imitation is the best form of flattery. And there's a lot of programs that are talking about their safety swimming, and at the end of the day, everybody's just trying to teach kids how to swim and to be safe. And you don't want to push others down who are really, their motives are in the right place. But we still believe that our curriculum is the best. We hear from people who started in other programs and then they come over to us and are really astonished at the difference. And so just making sure that the way that we spin that conversation is critically important. And then I'm also not naive in thinking that there are parents for whom they're just looking for the most convenient option that they can get their kids into right now. And candidly, maybe they're not thinking so much about the curriculum when they're signing up. And so we just need to be really present for them. We need to show them how easy it can be to get their kids enrolled. So I think it's two different kind of motivations that we're going toward. And how do you do one without the other? And I'd say that the third aspect of all of that is we pride ourselves on our kids' lessons, and we talk about survival of the littlest as our mantra, but we also, to my point earlier, have a really great program for young adults, so like middle schoolers and high schoolers, and then adults. So really making sure, how do you best go out to the market with that message without hurting the core of our business, which is that younger child side of things.
Yeah. So what does those brand initiatives look like for you guys right now? Are you testing different campaigns? Is it messaging, brand look? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so I think we'll get into some of that as we get further into the process, working with just a really fantastic group of folks who are driving this initiative. So they're elbow deep in the research and competitive analysis and interviewing stage of things. I don't expect that we're going to upend our brand name and really go from A to Z on the way things look. I do think we might see some refreshing of some of the visuals and really just looking at, okay, what are those core handful of messages that we should be emphasizing, and knowing we're not going to be everything to everyone. Who do we want to be something to for some people?
Yeah. And I love that you guys are always asking the question then, checking in. I think sometimes you just get on autopilot, like, you don't recheck in, you gain some insights from some of the data you're seeing, but like doing a really in-depth customer research project and branding project is, like you said about websites, like helpful every once in a while to go real deep as well.
For sure. And I think we've been through such a crazy few years coming out of COVID, and we had just incredible customer demand coming out of COVID, and demand is still really high, but we've seen customer levels are normalizing a bit. And I think we're in a bit more of a status quo type of environment, and just want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to keep growing as a brand.
Yeah. And another thing that you mentioned was background in data analytics, which I love. And so I'm curious your take on maybe not just what it means for British Swim School, but in general, where are we at when it comes to marketing? What do marketers need to be thinking about when it comes to data? Like, how do you approach the analytics side of things, given your background, and what marketers need to be paying attention to on that front?
For sure. I think it's not if you're using data, it's how deep you're going into it. And the tools are there to be able to pull it in and look at data from different data sources together. We use some business analytics tools where we have dashboards that are able to take things from maybe our reputation management software and some of the texting software I'm talking about, and then the customers' retention rate, and really look at it in different ways. And I think there's a level of just curiosity that you have to have if you're in this world, whether it's marketing or serving franchisees. And we lean really heavily on our brand team to have this be part of their kind of everyday world and their communications with franchisees. I think the reality of you have 200 franchisees and you're going to have a portion that's really into the data, you have a portion that is interested but perhaps a bit intimidated, and then you have a portion that is take it or leave it, and maybe they don't see the importance. And so it really comes down to our team to figure out, okay, what are those handful of KPIs that we can really drive with our franchisees? We don't need to show them the 100 reports that we have access to, but what are maybe 2 or 3 that we can get them to look at? And so on our side, it's creating a lot of frameworks of, okay, what do you as the franchise business coach look at every day? And then what do you look at with your franchisees every month? And that might be completely different than what our marketing team, I hope it's completely different than what our marketing team is looking at every day, week, and month. And then that's going to be completely different. And my sense is that it's really easy to get overwhelmed with data when you have so much. And part of the responsibility is figuring out, okay, what's meaningful to the different groups and how do we get them that information?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's always that push and pull, or at least for myself as a marketing leader, there's always the push and pull of how much time do you spend working in the business versus on the business. And I would love to literally do nothing but crunch data. Like that would be like, look at data, ask questions. That would be heaven to me. But there's a million things that need to happen just to operate the business too. So it's like, how do you carve out the time for that type of thing? But I think it's super important to do it. And even if you have to do like a data excellence initiative where you have marketing and ops and sales all coming together to have a concerted effort around it so it makes sure it gets the airspace, I think it's so critical to be on top of it. Otherwise, you will absolutely get left behind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm going to probably butcher the quote, but there's something along the lines of that which is measured improves, right? Mm-hmm. We have certain things that we report out to the team every week, and there's no choice but to pay attention to it at that time. And I'm a big kind of time blocking person with my schedule. And so I have certain times on my schedule where every week, every month, every quarter, I'm looking at different reports and move it around as I need to, but it's the way that I hold myself accountable for it. And we try to recommend similar things to our franchisees. We also have the ability to subscribe them to reports that just get auto sent to their emails, which is a really nice feature that we can do as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, you mentioned integrating all the systems into kind of one view for people. Is that a CRM for you guys? Is it a BI tool? What is the actual MarTech system looking like?
Yes, we use Tableau, awesome. Which is just, I think the only limitation is the people putting together the reports. And thankfully, we have an absolutely incredible couple of folks on our team that be like, here's what I'm trying to accomplish, or here's what I'm trying to figure out. And then lo and behold, I get something back that's 10 times better than what I would have expected. And so you could toggle the year. And so that's proven really incredible for us. And it also
Sorry, real quick, is that for your guys' just corporate team, or is that actual franchisees get access to that?
So we have both. So we have a set of corporate only workbooks, just that gives us view across the entire system. And then we have franchisee only workbooks that dig into the marketing of their business, customer sources, the cost per lead, all of that. Then they also have operational, which for us is a lot about the way that they're scheduling their classes and capacity and things like that. And then they also have a really deep dive into their aquatics program. So it'll show them things like retention by class and how long students are staying in classes, and a lot of different ways that we look at that.
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely have had experience with Tableau, and you do need someone who can build the workbooks. You can't do it yourself. What other inputs then do you have feeding into Tableau?
So the biggest one for us is a software that we use for customer enrollment. So that has everything from how much they're paying for their classes to when they're moving up in different levels to a family that has multiple children that are enrolled. That's our big one. So then we have a reputation management tool. We use kind of a profitability financial review tool that our franchisees can see, and that's benchmarking. So that's tied in as well, which is really nice because it gives the opportunity to connect, let's say, spend on marketing to the financials, or perhaps if we're seeing that their staffing costs are falling above or below our recommended thresholds, then we can say, okay, that's a great trigger to dig into how efficient are their classes scheduled and their capacity. And so we've got a handful of others that are tying in. We've got some of the Google Analytics pieces in there, customer lead flows from different vendors, but those are the primary ones.
Yeah. Have you found anything surprising from the data since you've had these dashboards, or anything that you've used specifically in marketing because of an insight that you found that you didn't see before?
I think there's probably a surprising thing the more you dig in, the more you see things, right? And sometimes it'll be as simple as hey, we've noticed that this data is not connecting correctly, and it gives us a great opportunity to make sure that everything's lined up right, or to really coach a franchisee on, hey, if you're putting all of your customer sources as other, it's not giving us many insights here to use. And I would say on the marketing side, looking at the lead sources has been especially helpful. The other side is being able to connect leads versus customer acquisition costs. And I think for us, that's led to some really great adjustments just in the way that we're approaching paid digital. And then I think of late, really emphasizing to our franchisees the importance of their local marketing initiatives, not just as something when they're launching, but it's something that carries through the life of their business as well.
Yeah, and CPA is so important. It's really the biggest grapple I think I have with cost per lead. Is it's a great input. You like to know it, but please do not optimize on it or like just focus on that. Like you have to actually know at the end of the day what's actually converting. And then you can figure out, that will give you a world of difference into what's actually working. If you're going to get a higher cost per lead, but like they convert 2 times faster, it's going to be beneficial. So
yeah, absolutely.
Like, that logic matters. That's
For
also
sure.
one of the conversations we just had at IFA was around PMAX specifically. And one marketer was like, love sprinkling in PMAX. It helps improve our performance. And the other hated it because it was really bad leads. And okay, what's the optimization that you have it going towards? Is it just conversion and leads? Yeah, they're just going to be sending everyone and your mom and the bad leads your way. If you have it optimizing towards actual revenue and booked customers, then it's going to be different, like worlds apart. So
yeah, for sure.
That CPA matters so much. That would be my one recommendation, I think, for all marketers. If you don't have that data connection, make that your initiative for 2025. And everyone's on a different journey with their data, but it's like, you got to start walking the path.
And I think that one of the perhaps misconceptions is that you have to have it all perfectly connected before you can start looking at it. And there's definitely ways to get to the information, even if it's a bit messy in an Excel workbook, but to at least have a sense of, and I think it goes beyond just paid digital effort. If you go to events and you're talking about your business and you get 100 leads, but that's because they're signing up for some giveaway. Maybe that's less valuable than something else where you invite people. We do these things called splash-a-paloozas, which you might get 15 people, but if 10 of them convert, then I would say that's maybe where you want to spend more of your time.
Yeah, exactly. Is there anything else? What else is working for you guys in terms of just your general marketing mix, either digital or non-digital? What's working well for you guys right now?
Yeah, for sure. We're finding that some of the kind of more traditional marketing is starting to come back. I think there's the take that everybody's expecting paid digital to be the silver bullet, and this is going to be the thing that drives all of the leads. But if everybody's expecting that, then it's becoming more expensive. I think we've all saw that over the last year, and I think in some ways it's harder to stand out. We're finding things like grocery cart advertising to be a significant driver of new customers. And you think about, I'm a parent and you're at the grocery store and you've got that cart in front of you and then there's the ad. You've got some pretty good, I think, FaceTime with parents. Another thing that's working really nicely for us, there's some opportunities that have things that go home with kids in these almost sponsored like school folders or through digital flyers that you can do with school systems. So for us, it's a lot of grassroots marketing is starting to have an impact. I would say there's also some more local parenting publications. So finding things where I think parents feel that it's more of a trusted resource. So whether it's a blog that goes out to everybody that lives in the Charlotte Metro once a month, and we've got a water safety article in there. Those things have been working pretty well for us. And so it's been nice to hear what franchisees are trying and then paying attention to what's working and then sharing that kind of across the system as well.
Yeah. One thing we've been seeing too, or I've been observing, is using audience data from digital to also help inform grassroots or direct mailers. So for example, once you have a lead, if you have their address and they're warm, then sending a direct mailer to their house. So therefore you're smart with your investment, but it's a great retargeting tool. Break down the silos. Don't just think about digital and grassroots. Think about how they can be combined for that full kind of nurturing of their journey.
Yeah, absolutely. That's smart.
Yeah. All right, we got a few more minutes, so I definitely want to ask the main thing I've been getting everyone's hot take on when it comes to AI, which is, what, if anything, do you personally use? Is your team using anything? Like, AI and everything that's out there is huge buzzwords, so I'm always interested if someone's using it for something super helpful or in a different and cool way beyond the usual note takers and all that jazz.
Yeah, I'm a big, I actually don't love all of the note takers. I know I'm probably not.
Sometimes they can be so wrong, which scares the shit out of me. I'm like,
Yeah,
no.
and I'm also like, I feel like I know what's the most important, but it definitely has a place. We've got some coaches who use it really nicely, I think, and it's a great way for the teams to have context of what their conversations would be. But I'm a huge Chat GPT user, and to me, it feels like the more that you've input into it, the better it becomes at just helping you to brainstorm. And I also feel like it's like the person sitting in the desk next to you that you can just brainstorm ideas with. And so sometimes I'll just toss something in there. Tell me some ideas that I'm not thinking about today in terms of, let's say, customer acquisition. And it's so it'll pop out a bunch of ideas. I love it for some really straightforward things about contracts. Had something that I was updating in the FPD, and I said, hey, I just need to reword this section so it talks about this in this language instead of that. And then it shoots out something that I'm like, that's not time I should feel bad about saving because it's not really using any brain power. We are working with our franchisees on AI chatbots for their portion of the website. So I would say from our consumer facing side of things, that's probably our biggest AI initiative right now. When somebody lands on the website, having an AI bot that actually can understand, based on what a parent's saying, what level that child might need to go into, which is a little bit more than just trying to capture a lead. And so we've got a couple of pretty cool providers that we're working with on that side. And I think every time I talk to them, they're like, oh, here's our new updates and here's these new things that we can do. So I think by the time we get to the end of this year, it's just going to be incredible how far that can take a lead in terms of nurturing them into a customer.
Yeah, it's moving so fast. Even this platform that we're recording the podcast on right now, every time I log back in, there's something new. There's like a new AI tool that will spit out social content or something. It's, oh man, I got to just stay on top of the actual tools I have, let alone the ones that are also out there.
Yeah,
which
for sure.
I think one of my approaches that I always try to tell my team too for AI tools is think about, you have to start with the problem you're trying to solve. Like for you guys, sounds like the AI chatbot is perfect because you're trying to reduce the complexity of finding information on the website, like nurturing that person once they land there. So it's okay, that's the problem you're trying to solve, and then you're using the AI tool for it, as opposed to just, okay, a ton of people say Lumen AI is great in the franchise space. So you don't need to use that because other people think it's great. Like you need to be solving the actual problem, and then I guarantee you there's probably some AI automations and some cool tool out there that will help with it. So
yeah, no, absolutely. I do think it's funny how easy it is to tell in a lot of cases if somebody's using AI to write an email. And it's part of me always is trying to think of, okay, why did they decide that they wanted to use AI for this? And sometimes it's just maybe they want to be really mindful of their tone, in which case I'm like, I appreciate you being thoughtful and wanting to have a professional tone. And sometimes it's, I think, relaying complex information, but it's definitely something that I feel that people need to be thoughtful about in terms of how apparent it might be if you've just used AI to draft a whole communication. So
yeah, that could be a really bad first impression.
I try to be careful and make sure that if I'm using it, it's really just more for like internal communications and saying, hey, I'm fully using AI because this is a lot of information to share and this is helping me to organize it. And
yeah, I like that.
Not losing the human touch of talking to people.
Yeah, yep. Ashley, it was so fun to talk with you today. I did want to ask before we head out if there's anything you wished I would have asked you that I didn't. Not that there has to be, but...
Oh, goodness. No, I don't really think so, other than let's let everybody know that their kids should be taking swim lessons, and it's just as important as putting a helmet on them if they're riding their bike or putting their seatbelt on.
As a mom, I deeply feel that, especially the survival first mindset, because I still have young children, and so the pool is not a relaxing place for me. It's a place where I'm a little stressed out and can't really fully read a book because I am always like still watching them. You still okay? You good? So I might have to be finding myself a British swim school in my area. Awesome. Thanks for joining, and thanks for everyone who listened in on another episode of the Art of Franchise Marketing podcast. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to The Art of Franchise Marketing. This show is brought to you by Netcertive. We help franchise brands and multi-location businesses run localized digital marketing at scale. To learn more, visit netcertive.com.